So you're working on an assignment that requires you to use sources. How can you be sure you don't plagiarize? Plagiarism can be intentional or unintentional. It can happen any time you misrepresent information or are dishonest about where information came from. This includes taking credit for other people's ideas. Most of the time, it can happen when a person is confused about whether or not they need to cite information and how they need to cite it. Many instances of plagiarism occur because students wait until the last minute to do research and hastily grab information from sources without analyzing them or integrating them into their own work. Simply restating something in your own words doesn't mean that it's your own thought. You'll need to include a citation anytime you directly quote, summarize, or paraphrase information from a source. So why shouldn't you plagiarize? First, it means you're not really learning the material. When you learn something and understand it, you should be able to paraphrase or summarize it in your own words. This still requires citation, but it's not the same as copying something word for word. Secondly, you're using someone else's ideas without giving them credit. Wouldn't you want to get credit for your ideas? Finally, you'll get caught. It's easier than ever for faculty members to check your work for plagiarism. There are tools and software that can be used, as well as a basic web search which can catch most instances of word-for-word or even slightly altered copied text. You may also get a non-passing grade for a class or get dismissed from the school altogether. So what information do you cite? Any information, fact, idea, or opinion that isn't your own. This can get confusing because as you learn more, it becomes harder to distinguish what you know and what you've recently learned. You also need to include a citation when you use visual materials like images, graphs, photographs, video or film excerpts, as well as music you incorporate into projects or presentations. It can be very easy to simply grab images off the internet, but unless you created the material yourself, you'll need to include the author, title of the work, web address, and date you retrieved it. This attributes the work to the person who created it. So for comparison, let's look at what you don't need to cite. You don't need to cite information that is common or general knowledge. Examples include that the Earth revolves around the Sun, that temperatures are colder in northern climates, that the longest river is the Nile, or that George Washington was the first U.S. president. You also don't need to cite original information. Examples of this could be findings from a poll you conducted, personal observations or opinions, and original creative works like artwork, photographs, or poetry. How can you make sure you don't plagiarize by mistake? First, keep track of which sources you use and take careful notes. You should keep a research diary or log so you can keep track of all the sources that you plan to use in your paper. You can even build your works cited page or bibliography first, and when you find a source you want to use, add it as you go. Avoid copying and pasting images or information from the internet without getting any citation information. It can be very easy to gather information from electronic resources, but move on to the next web page or source before you get the information you'll need to cite it. If you don't cite the information, it can be very easy to forget where you found it, and you may be tempted to just rephrase it or restate the information and take credit for it yourself. One great way to avoid plagiarism is to determine the citation style and format you plan to use. These are 3 of the most common styles. If you're not sure which one to use, check with your faculty member or go by discipline.